Hey wrestling fans, Mr. Technical Barry Horowitz with another episode of Technically Speaking. Episode 2, My Personal Journey in Professional Wrestling. Wow, where do I start? Well, let's start from the beginning. That's what everybody says. I'm going to say I have to give the biggest props to, it's very hard to get into professional wrestling back in the day. It's very secure, very shut tight, like kind of like gangster. Nobody wants to know anything. You can't find anything. You gotta seek and pursue. Well, through a friend, I met a businessman, a multimillionaire, name of Lenny Greenberg. Yes, he's Jewish. It's very obvious, his name, and he's the owner of Starkey Road Auto Parts in Seminole, Florida. It is still standing. I think his family owns it. And Lenny passed away a few years ago. And without this gentleman, he actually opened the door. I shut it. He's a businessman, and businessmen have a lot of contacts with not just, he owns a salvage yard, a multi-million-dollar salvage yard, but they have connections with other businessmen in banking, in politics, and sports. And I was very lucky. And he liked me. And he gave me the address and the phone number to, I consider, the greatest wrestling mentor, trainer, wrestler alive. And that was Professor Boris Malenko. And he gave me the number, he gave me the address, and I'm not going to go through step by step. I don't want to bore my fans, but I am going to go through, I'm going to, fast forward, to different parts of my journey. So anyway, I end up at a judo school in South Tampa, and I meet Mr. Malenko, his sons, and Carl von Stronheim. And basically, in a nutshell, I was there for 6 months on judo mats, taking bumps, getting stretched, getting hurt, getting slammed. Now remember I came from the amateur ranks, and I have to adapt to professional wrestling. That's like going from boxing to judo, or a motorcycle to a bicycle. So anyway, I'm taking bumps on mats that are like this, okay? And it toughened you up. 6 months, and from there we went into a mattress factory, which in the summer was 104 degrees, in the winter was 40 degrees. We had one ring, and then we had two. And that was like a big thing to get in the ring. Finally, we get to hit the ropes, and I love the way Malenko taught all of us. There was like 20 of us, and really, in his class, in his major class, there was only 2 people that made it, myself and Al Perez. There was other girl wrestlers, but that was the years that went by. And I wasn't really good at first, and I slowly adapted. And now remember I'm getting taught by the Malenkos and Karl Gotch. And if anybody knows anything about pro wrestling, amateur wrestling, shooting, hooking, they know Karl Gotch is a friggin' master. So anyway, I stayed there a year and a half on purpose. 3 days a week, 3 hours a night, lifted weights before that, and had a part-time job. Always had a part-time job, not planning to stay either. My career and lifelong dream was professional wrestling. So that's what happened. I stayed there a year and a half, and I waited for Malenko to tell me, you're ready to hit the road. And I did. I got in my car, I drove up north. I had phone numbers of Stu Hart, of Don Owens in Portland, Oregon, of Puerto Rico, Carlos Colon, Gorilla Monsoon for the WWF. That's when Vince Sr. was alive. And I basically bullshitted my way in from a payphone in Belmar, New Jersey. Just said I've been wrestling for 2 years. Probably I thought I was bullshitting Monsoon. He's a friggin' veteran of the Ring Wars, and he probably knew I was working him, but it felt like I got one over on him. Anyway, show up at TV. And back in the day for Vince Sr., TVs were Allentown and Hamburg, Pennsylvania. every 3 weeks. I'd wrestle Tuesday and Wednesday for at least, we were there at least in the mid-afternoon, didn't leave till midnight. I bet you I wrestled in 2 days 6 times. And there was everybody. I walked in that dressing room, Mr. Saito, Mr. Fuji, Bob Orton Jr., Jimmy Snuka, anybody who's everybody in pro wrestling. Bob Backlund was the world champion. The tag team champions were Chief Jay Strongbow and Jules Strongbow. It was unbelievable. It was very overwhelming. And I remember my first 2 matches, Angela Mosca Sr. and Don Morocco. Angela Mosca Sr. was stiff shit. I mean stiff. But I was 21, and it's part of paying dues. Don Morocco was friggin' awesome. Then I wrestled. I went on and on. Coco Beware, Jake the Snake. Anybody who's anybody, if you look in the archives, if you look on the internet, if you go to Facebook, if you go to YouTube, you'll find my whole career just about every kind of match. And if you could think of anybody that's anybody is there. Also, the 3 encyclopedias that the WWE sell, I'm in all 3 of them. And anybody that's in that book, if I was a heel, I wrestled every babyface. Everybody but Hulk Hogan. I mean, Andre the Giant, Bam Bam Bigelow, you name it. Tugboat, everybody. So anyway, I did that. And eventually I needed to move on and get polished. Okay, just doing TV for a year doesn't polish you. It builds the foundation and you pay dues. I think everybody should start that way. Really, if I had my way, everybody should start in Japan and pay your dues there. Okay? Anyway, and you learn respect and a lot of things. But Vince McMahon, I was supposed to go to Portland, Oregon, and I went to Crockett Promotions, Mid-South, and that was the NWA for Jimmy Crockett. And I mean, you name it, everybody was there. Flair, Orton, Valentine. Oh my God, I just on and on the list. People, handsome Jimmy Valiant, Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant, Rufus R. Jones, the best referees. We traveled 5-6 nights a week, driving. Flew to Canada once a month on a private plane. We'd go there and wrestle in Toronto. And that's where I got polished. Learning high spots, learning different wrestlers. I was a babyface. And I went in there as Barry Hart, and they changed my name to Bret Hart. That's another story we'll get to. I don't want to go into that right now. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But, well, some of you know the story already. And I stayed there like 2 years. Remember now, I'm traveling with Mike Rotundo and Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, Mark Youngblood, Rufus R. Jones, Jimmy Valiant, Bugsy McGraw, and I'm just listening. I keep my mouth shut, respect. Even if they're playing jokes, it's part of the wrestling business. This is my dream. I don't give a shit. Okay? I've got nothing to lose. I'm single. This is what I want. I'm not doing anything illegal, no sexual favors, nothing breaking the law. It's just all professional wrestling, old school, and learning your craft, honing your craft, and I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for it. And I stayed there 2 years, and then I finally, it was time to leave there, and I went back to Florida, where I'm from, and that was when I got to wrestle for Florida Championship Wrestling. Lifelong dream, watched it as a kid. Who would think that I would be in that sportatorium that I watched when I was 15, 16 years old, 106 North Albany in Tampa, which it is still there, and taping Florida Championship Wrestling with the late, great Gordon Soley. Again, a plethora of stars. Dusty Rhodes, Rocky Johnson, you name it, they've been there. I mean, these were big territories. Florida, North Carolina, and the Northeast. And I stayed there. And what's ironic is I had a losing streak, and they made a big gimmick out of it. One of my first big pushes, I win the Florida Heavyweight Championship in a tournament and beat Mike Graham in his hometown. which Mike Graham is one of my idols, and Jack Briscoe and Don Morocco and Bob Orton Jr. So it was just overwhelming. I handled it with grace and professionalism, didn't take advantage of it, don't get the big head, just do what you're told. And it got me a lot of places. I stayed there. Again, I'm fast forwarding a lot of things because if I go word for word, we'll be here all day, but also that's for something in my book. Hopefully by next year, I will go into every scrap, every crumb of detail of my whole career. So from there, finished up in Florida and went to the Jarrett Promotions, and was only there like 7 months, and did pretty good there. I won the Southern Tag Team titles with Chick Donovan against Soul Train Jones and Rocky Johnson, and usuals there: Jerry Lawler, Jeff Jarrett. There was a lot of guys there that are retired or passed away. Went there, and then I got a phone call to come back to WWF. Excuse me. And came back to WWF and wrestled. I mean, I wasn't main event, but I was making a lot more money. And it was very interesting. And again, a lot of wrestlers, a lot of people I met, and people I seen before. And got to do that. And then I got a neck injury, a severe neck injury. My C5 was ruptured. I was out for a year. I was living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time, and I was young, and I rehabbed really well. In 11 months, I was ready to go back, but the roster was full. They hired people like Black Bart, Pez Watley, Ronnie Garvin, so there was no spot for me, so I went to WCW, which was really cool. I stayed at WCW. It was very good. And again, fast forwarding, I stayed at WCW and then returned back to WWF. And basically stayed there and finally got my big push with Skip. Now we're going into 95. And that was probably I persevered. I stayed in there. I hung tough, and I got a push. And I really believe it was on my talent. Not to put myself over, but I do think I'm a good worker, and I'm definitely in the top 100 as far as technical wrestlers in this sport. That's in my eyes. That's my opinion. I'm not being biased. I'm just being fact, not brag. There's a difference. So, anyway, I did the Skip thing. We did Royal Rumbles in your house matches, WrestleManias. I mean, any pay-per-view I was involved in. And then I finished up there, which I didn't really understand. I think they could have turned me heel again or kept me as an underneath babyface. I'm grateful for what I got, but, I mean, there's other guys, but that's the politics of professional wrestling. This is what I tell people when they're bitching to me that are people in the know. They're going, I'm working too much, or I'm doing this, or I'm on the road 13 days in a row and stuff like that. Well, this is your dream. This is what you want. What do you want to do? Say, do you want another burger with that fries at the drive-thru? Is that what you want to do? Or bag groceries or whatever, unless you've got something that you're a doctor or something, went to school for that and you can go back to it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's part of paying dues. If you're making money, there's nothing wrong with that. So I don't understand that aspect of the business. And also, guys, got to save your money. Buy insurance. Don't go to the bars and spend $700 on beer and whatever else you're doing. So I really don't get that. I just can't fathom it. But anyway, I went on and I just worked the indies until I got tired of the weekend warrior mark promoters. You got two kinds of promoters in indies. You got ones that are respectful, and it's a shame because they get mistake kindness for weakness from some guys. It's not cool. I don't do that. My job is to look proper, get there, make the plane, be a professional. Either you're doing meet and greets or you're wrestling or whatever. And see, there's nobody in charge like there is, and you're not under contract like you would be for a major promotion. So, so they're going to break the rules. I don't agree with that. But I also don't agree with guys that think they're Vince McMahon or Jimmy Crockett Jr. or anybody, Jerry Jarrett. They're not. You got a regular job. You're running a Friday night or Saturday night show. You're not that big of a shot, and you should have respect for the veterans that are coming to your show. But that's another story. So that's what I did. Now remember, I went to FSU and I wrestled. I wrestled in high school. I wrestled at FSU only for a year because I left because of turning professional wrestler. I could have stayed there 4 years and not fulfilled my dream. So that could have went either or. But I did take up sports nutrition, and I'm as of last year a certified nutritionist. I was and lost my certification, renewed it. So that's what I do. But my love for the sport, I just love professional wrestling, and I love to mentor and teach and pass Malenko's ways and my other things that I caught off the road from other people. Took this, took that, took this from different, not copy, there's a difference. Just take a little bit of this and that. And that's what I like to do, coaching, and nothing pays like professional wrestling. But that's another story, that's another journey that we'll get into about disrespecting Barry Horowitz in the pro wrestling. Again, there's a difference between bitching and legitimate bitching. Bitching and whining is you're not showing up at the gym, you fail drug tests, you look like shit, you can't wrestle, you look like a backyard wrestler. Nothing against them. But if you're going to look like that and you're a buck 60, it ain't going to happen. I'm not saying get gassed up to 280, but look the part, please. I mean, you can. So that's what I'm in the transition of doing now. My nutrition. Also, I'm on cameo.com for you avid wrestling fans that love wrestling and love myself. Also my Facebook, also WWE.com, and also ProWrestlingTees.com. I have 4 brand new shirts. So that's pretty interesting. So, but I am seeking a agent job or a coaching job with a major promotion. So that's where I stand right now. I'm hoping you guys like that and I enlightened you about my career. I'll go on with it. Other episodes I'll touch on it. I don't want to bore you with stuff like that. And different respect factors in the wrestling business. You know, it's amazing. 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't talk like this because it was all kayfabe. And now there's nothing, people know. I mean, come on. You want to be entertained, but the internet and Dave Meltzer is what ruined everything, breaking kayfabe. But now nobody wants to beat his ass or cares about Eddie Mansfield or cares about any of those guys. It's stupid now. So you guys, any of you guys, I'm sure the fans like this. Any of the pro wrestlers don't like this. Hey, there's worse interviews than this. I've seen it. So don't give me a hard time if you see me in the airport or a locker room, because I'm not going to stand for it. I'm older now. I'm not under contract. I don't have to follow all these rules. So it's just bullshit. So don't fuck with me. I don't like that. Respect me. I love that too, the respect thing. I'll have guys come up to me in the past 2 years and, I really liked your work. You're a good worker. You're this. But they couldn't say it back in the day because they didn't want me to take their spot, or they didn't want no stooge to overhear it and they'll go tell Pat Patterson or Vince or something. Kind of immature and childish, and insecure too. But I've never thought that way. I've never had to think that way. I just did my job, did my work, never tried to outdo anybody. But I'm not going to put a lid on my work. I refuse to. I mean, if they're asking me to do something and I'm getting paid, I do understand that. But as far as going out there I'm going to go out there with Owen Hart or of somebody like of that nature or Bret Hart. I'm going to have a match, and that's the way it's going to be. And to touch on, here's another thing I'm getting from fans a lot. I'm going to answer this as best as I can, fans, wrestling fans. Why aren't you in the Hall of Fame, and how come you didn't get a bigger push? Well, now I'm going to tell you a little bit. I see you guys at the meet and greets and WrestleCons, but here's the thing. See this pen? The pen is the power, they say the power of the pencil. That means the booker. He pens you in, he can erase you. Okay? That's what's going on. You could be a good worker, you could be a bad worker. It all depends, because I know I didn't break any rules. I don't know why, but I did get a push, and I did get pushes elsewhere, so I'm grateful. Some guys got nothing. Okay, as far as the Hall of Fame, that's a big Zerk, and you know it. I mean, you're putting Bob Uecker in there, and you're putting Kid Rock in there. It doesn't represent wrestling. They don't do that in the NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball. You stick with wrestlers. Yes, I deserve to be in there. Why? Oh, because I'm not upper tier. I'm not Shawn Michaels, or I'm not Undertaker, or I'm not Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, any of these guys. I don't care. Okay? No, it's just I should be in there for my enhancement talent, also my regular match experience. So that's why. And if you're really still perplexed about this, next time you see Vince at a Coliseum or a Monday Night Raw taping, why don't you go ask him? Okay? That would be the best thing to do. So, fans, I am going to end this segment, episode 2 of my journey. I'll be back with episode 3 next week. And this was Technically Speaking with moi, Barry Horowitz. Big as a house, 1 bedroom. I stole that from Kurt Hennig. I just thought I'd let you know. And anyway, again, this is brought to you by Cameo.com and also my Facebook and also ProWrestlingTeased.com. So until next time, I want you all to remember this. Have a great day, and if you can't, change it. This is Barry Horowitz saying so long from the Sunshine State. See you, fans.